The moment my foot touched the basement floor, everything stopped. The whistling vanished. The sweeping sounds went silent. Complete silent. The air turned ice cold. I was 6 years old, standing alone in my grandparents' basement. I turned toward the corner where the sounds had been coming from. The old yellow straw broom was leaning against the wall, perfectly still. Nobody was there. The dust on the floor didn't even look disturbed. My grandfather had told me one thing before he fell asleep. Don't go downstairs. But I did. And I think I opened something that day. Something I couldn't close for years. I'm Alvin, and this is Common Ground Horror. Before I tell you what happened, I need to explain something. I've never told anyone this story except my immediate family, because honestly, who would believe a 6-year-old? But I'm grown now, and I can still hear the sounds. Everything that happened to me is real. Some of the details are blurred. I can't recall the exact sequence of everything, but I do remember it was traumatic. And I remember that no one believed me. I was about 6 years old. It was a regular day. I was homesick from school or something like that. I don't really remember why I wasn't at school. My mom had to run errands, so she left me with my grandfather. My grandparents lived in this old house by a creek. If you've ever been in a big old house next to a creek, you know the vibe. The kind of house that creaks and settles, where the air feels different, where you always feel like someone's watching you. I always felt that way in that house. The house had a massive basement. It wasn't just a storage space. It was almost like a second home down there. My uncle used to live in the basement. He'd set it up with furniture, a TV, everything. The basement had 2 entrances. One was through the kitchen inside the house, a door that led to stairs going down. The other was outside, a side passage with its own door leading down from the yard. That day, my grandfather was tired. He went to his room to lay down, and I followed him. I was sitting on the bed playing while he got comfortable. Before he fell asleep, he looked at me, and he said one thing. Don't go downstairs. He meant the basement. I said okay. I stayed in the room for a while, playing quietly. Eventually, I got thirsty. I didn't want to wake my grandfather up, so I went to the kitchen myself to get water. I was filling a cup at the sink when I heard it. Someone was sweeping the concrete floor in the basement. I froze, listening. The sound was steady, rhythmic. And then I heard whistling. Low, steady, almost cheerful. Someone was down there, sweeping and whistling. It sounded exactly like my uncle. My uncle used to whistle while he cleaned. It was just something he did. He had one of those old-fashioned yellow straw brooms, the kind with a wooden handle and natural bristles. I thought, oh, he's home. That made sense. He still came by the house sometimes, even though he didn't live there anymore. I walked to the outside basement entrance. the door that led down from the side passage. I opened it and called down the stairs. "Uncle, are you there?" The whistling didn't stop. The sweeping didn't stop. I started down the stairs. Halfway down, I called again. "Uncle?" No answer. But the sounds didn't stop either. The whistling continued. The sweeping continued. So I kept walking. I reached the bottom of the stairs and entered the basement. It was dim down there. The light from the small windows didn't reach far. "Uncle?" I called out. The sounds got louder. The whistling was clear as day now, right in front of me. The sweeping was coming from the far corner. I took a step forward onto the basement floor, and the moment my foot touched the concrete, silence. The whistling vanished. The sweeping stopped instantly, like someone had pressed a mute button. Complete, total silence. "Uncle?" I whispered. My voice sounded small in the sudden quiet. "Are you here?" No response. Then I felt it. The air turned ice cold. Not just cool, cold, like stepping into a freezer. I could see my breath. I turned toward the corner where the noise had been coming from. There, leaning against the wall, was the old yellow straw broom. Perfectly still. Nobody holding it. Nobody near it. The dust on the floor around it didn't even look disturbed. Like no one had been sweeping at all. I stared at that broom. At the empty corner. At the basement that was suddenly impossibly quiet. And I ran. I bolted up those stairs as fast as my 6-year-old legs could carry me, slammed the basement door behind me, ran through the house, dove back into bed next to my sleeping grandfather. He didn't even wake up. I didn't move, didn't say a word. I just lay there, my heart pounding, staring at the ceiling. I stayed like that until my mom came back. I never told my uncle about it. Not then, not later. I loved him. I didn't want him to think I was crazy. I thought maybe it was all in my head. Maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe I'd fallen asleep in my grandfather's room and dreamed the whole thing. So I brushed it off. But deep down, I knew. I knew something had happened down there. Because somehow, I'd opened a door that day. A door I couldn't close. For years after that, I was tormented. Not constantly, but regularly enough that I couldn't ignore it. I'd see things. Shadows moving in the corners of rooms. Figures standing in doorways that disappeared when I looked directly at them. I'd hear things. Footsteps when I was alone. Whispers I couldn't make out. Doors opening and closing on their own. And sometimes, I'd wake up with marks on my body. Scratches. Bruises. Things I couldn't explain. Things that shouldn't have been there. My parents didn't know what to do with me. They thought I had an overactive imagination, that I was looking for attention. But I wasn't making it up. I was terrified. I didn't want to see these things. I didn't want to hear them. But they kept happening. It took me years, well into my teenage years, to figure out how to shut it off. I don't know if shut it off is the right way to describe it, but I learned how to close myself to it, I guess. To not let it in. To not be scared anymore. Once I stopped being afraid, the experiences became less frequent. And eventually, they mostly stopped. I still get moments sometimes, brief things, a feeling of being watched, a shadow I can't quite explain. But nothing like those years after the basement. I think about that day a lot. I was 6 years old, and my grandfather told me not to go downstairs. But I did. Because I heard my uncle, or at least I heard something that sounded exactly like my uncle, whistling, sweeping with that old yellow broom. But when I got down there was nothing. Just silence. Just cold. Just a broom leaning against the wall. I don't know what I heard that day. I don't know what was making those sounds. But I know it wasn't my uncle. And I know that the moment I stepped onto that basement floor, something changed. Like I'd crossed a threshold I wasn't supposed to cross. Like I'd acknowledged something I should have ignored. My grandfather told me not to go downstairs. He must have known. Maybe he'd heard it too. Maybe that's why he warned me. But I didn't listen. And whatever was down there, it followed me. For years, it followed me. I've had other experiences since then, other encounters. And I'll share those stories another time. But that basement, that was the first. That was the one that opened the door. And for a long time, I couldn't figure out how to close it. If you ever find yourself in an old house and someone tells you not to go somewhere, listen to them. Because some doors, once you open them, don't close easily. And some things, once you acknowledge them, don't let you go. If you've lived through a nightmare you can't explain, I want to hear it. Send your stories to commongroundhorror@gmail.com to be featured on the channel. This has been Alvin for Common Ground Horror. Until next time, sleep well, if you can.